Well, I think everybody realized that the other day Ken Giller and I had a public disagreement. We had dinner last night and came to quite a good level of agreement, although still not totally in agreement. So I wanted to spend just 1 or 2 minutes telling you our conclusion, because I think this is a tremendously important issue in the whole context of droughts and decreasing soil fertility. Basically, what happened yesterday, just to remind you, was that I said that you could, outside of a very few exceptions, you could use just green manure cover crops and rehabilitate soils to 3 or 4 times their original productivity. And Ken said he didn't agree. And that's as far as it went. What we concluded last night in a very nice conversation is the following. There are certain places where you cannot just use green manure cover crops and improve the soil. And in fact, some of these cases you can't even improve the soil with phosphorus and inoculants plus green manure cover crops. These are areas, first of all, where you have somewhere in the order of 350 millimeters of rain or less per year, because it's just not enough to get the green manures going. Interestingly, there's one nutrient that is in no way improved. Its deficiency is in no way improved by organic matter, and that's manganese. It's an extremely, the only place I've ever seen that was in one small part of the state of Oaxaca in Mexico. And I've worked in more than 50 developing countries around the world and in many parts of some of them. And 23 countries here in Africa. Manganese deficiencies, you almost never see it, but it does exist once in a while. Where the pH is below 4.5, we have troubles getting green manures to work. And where the soil is either chemically polluted or salinized, usually because of poor irrigation practices. Though in those places we can't do it. But if you think about it, probably outside of the low rainfall areas, probably only 5 to 10% of the rest of the land in sub-Saharan Africa would be eliminated by these 5 or 6 different situations. In other words, my feeling is that probably we can get close to at least rehabilitating 85 to 90% of the areas in sub-Saharan Africa that have over 400 millimeters of rain with the exclusive use of green manure cover crops. Okay? Also, even in some of those cases, we can use a little bit of animal manure instead of having to buy very expensive phosphorus. Ken, at the end of the conversation, I gave quite a bit there. And actually, I can't say for sure that 80% figure or 85% figure is accurate. It may only be 50%, because after all, I haven't worked on more than probably 2% of African soils, although they were soils from all sorts of different places and situations. Ken now is willing to say absolutely that there are many places where you can use just green manure cover crops. You don't have to spend the money on phosphorus and inoculants, but he's not sure how extensive that area is. He'd say maybe, he didn't give a percentage, but he probably is willing to admit that 30 or 40% or something of the soils can be done without those added amendments. And the area between us, maybe another 40% of the soils, we'll just have to see. I mean, both of us have promised that we really want to work with each other and find out, as well as we can, which soils can be done without the extra amendments of inoculants and phosphorus fertilizer. Now, that said, if farmers want to pay for a faster response than green manure cover crops can give them, if they don't want to wait for 3 years to double their crop yields or 5 years to triple them, then if they're willing to pay, to buy the phosphorus and buy the inoculant, then they can speed up the process, and both Ken and I are perfectly happy with that. Okay? Is that okay? If there are any questions, I think we have a few minutes for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roland. How sweet it is, how pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity. Okay, it's off now.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Mr. Kinsey, for your initial introduction. As he said, my name is Lawrence Lwanji. I am working with Diocese of Central Tanganyika Anglican Church, Tanzania. My title is Monitoring and Evaluation Coordinator for the Program of Food Security and Livelihood. With this program, we work in a partnership with the CFGB and the Tier Fund Canada. It is a 5-year program, and it was started since 2015, 2016. So we expect to close up the program early March 2020. So my panel discussion paper is about on scaling up CA through marketing inducements. In our program, we promote millet and sorghum as main crops, but also we promote lablab, canavaria, and other GMCCs in terms of green manure cover crops. And this include lablab, pigeon pea, green gum, cowpeas, and other related family crops. Dodoma, as you may see in my presentation, is a drought-resistant region with very minimal rainfall per year, about 200 to 400 millimeters per year. But through conservation agriculture, it has improved very much production with our farmers, and the surpluses is now accessing the market. So the farmers, they are getting something out of their efforts. And the typical lens that one can observe with the CA plots during dry season, this is a typical farm. After cultivating this farm for 2 years, it now looks like this one. But for conventional farm, it looks like this one. It has nothing. So CA, it has made a difference in Dodoma, and the farmer enjoying their efforts through cultivation of their plots. Yeah, with the program for 5-year term, we expect at the end to reach about 4,000 smallholder farmers, and 40% that's supposed to be women household heads. And also, we expect to reach about 350 members of village savings and lending groups in 46 groups. And combining these targets, we think that at the program end, 7,350 people will have a permanent job. There will be a permanent farmer, there will be a permanent people making savings, so making the livelihoods more improved. But also the project areas and the more other people along agricultural value chain activities will be benefiting. And this include crop processors, fabricators of CA equipments, agro-input suppliers, and the rest. So our program, which we implement through conservation agriculture, it contributes to some local, national, and global policies. For example, we contribute towards Sustainable Development Goal number 2 and 3, but also National Climate Change Adaptation and Mitigation Strategy, Mukukuta 2, which is a poverty reduction strategy, a national poverty reduction strategy, phase 2, and they contribute towards achieving agriculture sector program development phase 2, ASTB 2. So we have a lot to do to make sure that our contribution is visible towards those policies. So let's see at a glance on the National Agricultural Fact Sheet. In Tanzania, 80% Tanzanians are directly employed in the agricultural sector. 99.5% of Tanzania's sources of foods are coming from agriculture as well. 93.6% of industrial raw material in Tanzania are from the same sector of agriculture. Arab land, we are blessed to have 44 million hectares, but only 23% are land cultivation. And the vast fresh waters, covering about 29 million hectares, irrigable, but only 1% is utilized. And the contribution of 26.7% to GDP and 30% of export receipts. And this is according to Kilimo Kwanza, or First Kilimo, First Agriculture, and the SPD 2 May 2017. So with the CA, with the conservation agriculture, it has an opportunity to make sure that its investment are focused at making sure that these opportunities are being utilized to the scale, because we have potential resources in Tanzania still not unused, as the statistics shows there. So let's see on Project Rationale and the context of our program. So before we started the intervention, we conducted a community assessment to see the situation, how it is about. And these was the results. Convention tillage was practiced by many farmers, but the results was very low yield per unit area. Women performed most of farm activities and all domestic choirs, with the support of the girl child. Shortage of important agro inputs like seed due to lack of agro input services providers and shops. They're lacking in the intervention area. Fire and roaming animals as a result of free range packets graze on fields. Regular farming droughts, destructive birds that affected food security situation in the area. Red for forest and water resources showed a downward trend, and lack of bank and financial services, lack of market infrastructures. Farming was the only source of livelihoods, and the farmland had poor fertility. So with those results, one can say that most of these are climate-related issues, plus poverty, income poverty. Climate-related issues and income poverty. So in a summary of the situation analysis, one can say that household, and actually was obvious that household survived with only 1 meal a day by then when we conducted the assessment, situation assessment. And in this case, food security was ensured. But as I said, the situation mainly contributed by impact of climate change and the income poverty. And from those, DCT, when it was working on the process of change, we come out with the only solution for those challenges could be on implementation of conservation agriculture and through savings and lending facility to avoid the situation. And this is also the pictures that show the typical conventional plot as compared to conservation agriculture plot, which it makes difference. So from the start, in order to make sure that we are achieving what the program is anticipating, that to have an improved food security and livelihood in the program area, we developed monitoring and evaluation framework so that as to capture results. And the results for us is very important because it enables us to compare the situation before and the changes that are occurring during implementation and after the intervention. So from the start of the program, we started with the conservation agriculture as well as savings and lending groups. But in 2016-2017, marketing components were integrated in the program. And another complementary factor in the program to make it conservation agriculture to prosper. And the aim was to mobilize smallholder farmers to come together and let their voices heard and then strengthen their bargaining power on price setting. As we could remember that on the situation analysis, there was a lacking of marketing infrastructure and the farmer had no voice about what they produce when they sell. So, on starting with this component in 2017, the city scanned their marketing environment in the project areas, and the exercise involved the farmers, interview with the farmers, focus group discussions, and other participatory tools we used. Also with the policy and decision makers in the government system, businessmen, and the DCT program staff. And the following now are the summary of findings. Let's start with the farmers. What the farmers they said during the interviews and the focus group discussions. One of the things they mentioned was grain damage on storage, and that was by 59%. Low prices, sold crops, and lack of marketplace to sell their crops. On the plus crops to sell, the farmers, they mentioned that most of them, 74%, they sell at home through businessmen. And the businessmen, they use middlemen to collect the crops from the villages. And the other 18.5%, they said, they send it to the Dodoma town to sell their crops. And at the local market is 7.4%. However, majority of the farmers produces for subsistence, thus they lack enough surplus to sell. And it was only one village among the 7 villages that we implement our program called Nzasa is what had a marketplace, and this one is conducting once every week on Sunday. 25% of women are were being business active who trade alongside men. And this picture was taken in one of the open market at Hombolo, where the women saw that they are not behind on business. So they sell, and that was maize. And this on the open market in one of our places that we work with the farmers. But also the farmer, they showed how they could get better price for their produce. And most of their results, they mentioned two things: Farmers Association and the marketplace. That when they manage to come together, they can have a voice about their produce, and especially to negotiate on the price of what they produce from their efforts. But also the second one, as these two pyramids shows, that if they have a marketplace within their village, they can be able to stand to have a better price for their produce. About businessmen, the businessmen with the interview, they also have many things to say about on where and how do they get products. They mentioned direct buy from farmers who brought the products to the market, buying from wholesaler, and from business agents. However, there are some challenges within these farmers. There is a weakness in determining actual selling price for their commodities. And this, it comes from the answers that they give from the interviews we conducted. For example, the methods in determining selling price. 70% they said they just consider selling price. Simple as that. Another group, 20% they said by buying price and the other operating costs. And another one is buying price and adding profit margin. So maybe, to my thinking, the second one and the third one, that might be more accurate than the first one. But also another challenge the businessman mentioned was complaints on unclean commodities they buy from farmers. Unclean products, they said they add weight in measurements, so they can pay more, but they could not make profit because the additional weight is for dust or for unclean and for unclean products within the crops that they buy. But also there are some answers which were very, we paid attention to them. For example, the question on how to improve the relationship between businessmen and the farmers. One of the answers was included, not easy to build good relationship in business with the farmers. And these were mentioned by 27.3 as the leading response with this question. Another response in relation with this question was farmers to produce quality and quantity products for sale, which was about 18.2% of response. Therefore, clean and quality products from farmers are the most priority for businessmen. And in order to build trust and to collaborate with them. However, capital is a major barrier for businessmen for them to succeed. And a discussion with them, they normally, every time you discuss with them, they just mention lack and a short of capital. This was a common discussion with the businessman. But also we talked about on the mobile phone application, and we're still mobilizing the farmers now to form the producer and marketing groups so that they get registered and to make them access financial loans from financial institutions. but expanding extension services to the farmers by allocating more extension officers. And from this also, we looked from the government, and they supplied about 760 kilograms of sunflower, improved sunflower seeds, supplied to 380 farmers. So also we are advocating for harmonizing payments of all fees and taxes in one-stop shop system to avoid misconvenience to business and investors, as the businessman complains that they add up costs to them. And also to establish one-stop center for crops collection and selling in villages to empower farmers. And this will be a tool for making the businessmen to compete to buy crops. And according to production cost analysis, CA farming is more profitable undertaking than the conventional farming. More efforts to scale CA of high priority with the DCT. Activity completed and addressing emerging challenges so far. Storage is a crucial facility. We conduct training in storage management, and also we train aggregation groups and VSL groups in business skills and entrepreneurship. And we supported the construction of about 225 airtight storage facilities for them to store, but also to wait for the price to be good to sell in the future. Collaboration as well to increase volume and aggregation form the best choice by the farmers. Farmers also practice CA than the conventional ones, have recognized the importance of to expand farm plots from season to season. And we have identified 11 strategic value chain partners to link our farmers. And this includes, we prioritize the three. Teso, which is Central Zone sunflower processors, TCIA, and the East African Grain Council to link with our farmers for grain business. So we succeeded to conduct B2B meeting where farmers met businessmen for business deal. Business contracts were signed. Farmers understood what is needed by the buyer, so to produce what the market is needing. Farmers also profiling the linking with the online market platform like G-Soko and Rationale with the East African Grain Council identified in certification of village aggregation center in Nzasa village. Mobilizing the farmers to form aggregation groups so that they construct the constitution, registration, and profiling so that they can manage themselves. Conduct cost analysis and return on investment and regular review. Farmers to choose before every season on a profitable crop combination through intercropping. And mobilizing farmers to decide how and where to store their produce. Most groups choose one member with enough space at home to provide storage, agree on storage materials and what and how to get fumigation services. In the season 2016-2017 season, farmers performed in the first time estimates, volume estimates, and about 125 metric ton of mixed crops estimated to be harvested in 2016-2017. Sunflower alone reached about 1 metric ton of yields, and 2017-2018, 2.4 metric ton, and it was sold to a value of 16,800,000 were sold. Millet and sorghum surplus, 200 metric ton and 80 metric ton respectively, were not sold for 2017-2018 due to lack of attractive price for farmers to accept. Investment in cassava processing factory, partnership between the DCT and the KT company, aimed to process starch and animal feeds and other cassava byproducts, is in the final touches to sign. And the government have very much interest to see that all farmers in Dodoma region with the 60 districts are linked with the buyers to have their crops bought to each incomes, to increase incomes and reduce poverty. Food security status. Food security increased household level from the lowest level set by WFP In both the first and second year, 90% of households were food insecure. 39% of households were moderately food secured in first year, and 3.9 in second year. Slightly food insecure was 35% in first year, and 34.9 in second year. Extremely food insecure was 4% in the first year, but 2.6% in the second year. Food expenditure score at first year was 6%, and the follow-up survey was 32%. According to WFP classification, this is a favorable step, and both surveys were within the range of marginally food secure households. Savings and lending activities. The component aim at building farmers' financial capacity to access agro inputs and seeds when is needed, and used to increase production for food self-sufficiency and surplus for marketing. Financial services operational results. Total VCR 33 groups with members 1,827. Value of saving this cycle, Tanzania shilling 106,636,000, which is social funds balance 4 million, almost 5 million. Property at start, almost 3 million, and the net profit 3,448,000. Analysis of observation. Increase the farmers' resilience. On average, there is a progressive upward increase in CA yields per acre of both millet and sorghum from base year, second year, and midterm reflection surveys. In all these surveys, percentage increase in yields under CA was much higher than yields under conventional farming and at the same acre of the farm. This is therefore evidence which the program shares with farmers, and this is huge increase in hope which excites farmers to join and do CA. The increase of CA farmers in each season and the yields and the accompanied value also justify the complementary role the marketing has in scale up conservation agriculture, contributing to increase the farmers' resilience. Household resources managed and the gender perspective. Women being majority of farmers, the largest share of family and household incomes are due to their contributions. The project facilitates and strengthens skills and knowledge through different trainings, including mobilizing the community to increase involvement of men so that the families and households benefits from efforts of both women and men in equal footing. Up to July 2017, households which afforded or not afforded medical and education expenses to the kids, loan reimbursement, buying agro implements as a result of an increase of income due to conservation agriculture. 54% of households were very able. 42% of households were somewhat able, and the 2.9% of households were not able. From the data, income poverty is drastically declining to the communities in the project villages as compared to the base year. Increase of CA productivity and improved food security. In the 2016-2017 season, rainfall was little. However, smallholder farmers with CA plots had good harvest compared to the conventional farmers. Data from both base year and subsequent follow-up surveys yields CA plots exceeded far that in conventional in the same comparable plot size of an acre. Many smallholder farmers are increasing their CA plots on an average of 2 acres now. Pearl millet and sorghum are stable staple food crops. Yields have shown to be increasing in 3 years consecutive seasons, from 2018-15 to 2016 up to 2017-2018. Increase of yields in CA plots has provided households with an increase of food security, where now households enjoy 3 meals per day compared to 1 per day before intervention. And increase the income and the women empowerment. Incomes accrued from CA and the savings and lending facilities have increased the ability of households to easily meet most of their basic needs than before intervention. Women have been breadwinners by being actively contributors to food security and increase the income at the household level due to active participation in CA and the saving lending and the marketing issues. Increase in CA due to increased yields due to CA. The project mobilizes construction of underground air storage facility for storing harvest for future use and for future sale when the price is favorable. Food security has ensured women to have time engaged in other productive activities such as pet business and service and lending. Facilities contribute to increase more income to the family. Women are more majority participants in VSCR, and assets building wider economic. Households afford to buy agro inputs and seed through loans from VSL facility and the money received from market of crops. The sum of 31 million accrued as net profit that belong to VSL members invest in key household development activities. The net profit contribute to the circulation of the national economy through purchase of services and products that contribute to national income, GDP. Widow afford to construct a decent house, and the challenges, just to wind up, lack of market for millet, 200 metric ton, and sorghum, 8 metric ton surplus in here. While looking for buyer, immediate storage is important, and we are working with the farmer on that. Regular drought and pest attack. This is still a regular problem we encountered. Complicated procedure by some buyers, failed farmers send their produce to the market. Farmers obliged to transport crops to buyer, undergo crop cleaning and grading at a selling point in town. Third, document lesson learned and promising best practice to disseminate with the stockholders. Advocate on mechanization for transition from handheld to more friendly and labor-saving CA technology, especially that relieve women workload. Expand cassava production to reach 10,000 acres in Chamber District in collaboration with TCCIA. We are now developing an economic model to work with, and we have consulted Tanzania Agricultural Development Bank, who have shown interest in this. Conclusively, complemented.
We'll leave the slide up. They can read it. I want people to have some chance to react. It's a great success story. You don't have to read it.
Okay.
It's wonderful. Can we leave some time for, I don't think you have to go through the rest. Please allow now the...
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Kinze, for your advice. So now is the room for audience to come up with their questions. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you, sir, for the good presentation. I'm just interested to know to what extent have you integrated the aspect of agro-processing and value addition to address the issue of post-harvest losses?
Thank you. We just take care about that, and I have conducted some training with our farmers on post-harvest handling, and we normally do as a preparation before harvesting. So we do it, and we are looking now as we are progressing on the investment in to train our farmers on small-scale processing at home. So we are looking on that. We are still working.
Okay. Recently we had we were discussing about marketing and mostly how small-scale farmers can aggregate their produce. And one of the challenges that we got in Kenya is where NGOs or the actors like ourselves facilitate or come in to help the farmers in the process. And in most cases, there is no sustainability. So like we can do the aggregation centers and train the farmers, but most of the time it lasts until the end of the project and then doesn't go beyond there. So what specifically have you put in place? What strategies have you put in place to ensure that the aggregation of produce will continue in the future? And number two, what strategies are you using? What strategies are you using to ensure that you are continuously getting the buyer? And who is this buyer that you are getting for the produce that the farmers are having? Who gets the buyer? Thank you.
Thank you very much. In my first presentation, I think is the first or the second slide, we conducted a situation analysis where the farmers themselves shown an interest to have an association. It's themselves who said so. It's not ours. They said in order to have a good, attractive price for the produce, they need a farmers association or in groups so that they can have a negotiating power with the businessman. So that's one. So when now we come to the introduction of the aggregation groups, we just do mobilization and they leave for the farmers themselves to decide. And because from the very beginning they have an interest to have an association for themselves, so they agreed and they formed it themselves. So we continue with building their capacity on business aspects, on the marketing issues, and they're looking for buyers and linking them. And we do conduct business to business meetings where the farmers and the buyers, they come together and the buyers say, okay, in this season, I expect to buy a certain type of crops. So the farmer, they have a prior information, what they need to produce in that season, so that when they harvest, they are sure that they are going to sell their produce. That's what we, and this have worked very much because our role as NGOs is just to facilitate discussions and linkages and the building capacity of our farmers so that they can negotiate well with the businessman. But rather than doing it, we are not doing it. It's the farmer who do themselves. And ourselves take the leading role of facilitation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lwanji, for the presentation. Experience shows that there is always fluctuation of prices, and actually the ones who are affected when the prices are very low are the same farmers who are the producers. What are you doing especially to help the farmers when the prices are very low? What advice are you trying to give to the farmers? Are you doing some lobbying? Are you constructing some warehouses? Especially when the prices are higher, they would actually get to a point where they would sell their crops to a higher price for them to get some income. As we know, these are the ones who normally suffer.
Yeah, thank you. We do, instead of making our farmers to be price takers, we empower them to have their voice be heard by the buyers. So for my presentation, maybe because it was long, I mentioned somewhere that our farmers, they have now started to have surplus compared to when they started. There was no surplus. So through conservation agriculture, they are now scaling up their plots, so production is increasing, so surplus is there. So when now they come on selling, there are some issues that we have been helping them. First is to aggregate and store. To store so that in the future, some days to come, some months or some weeks, when the price is attractive, is where the farmer now, they can release their surplus that they have stored to sell when the price is good. That's one of the strategies that we advise our farmers to do. And it has done, because I mentioned there is a surplus metric ton 200 of millet and 8 metric ton of sorghum. They're not yet sold up to now because the farmers are not ready to sell for the low price now. So they are working on storage them so that in the future they can have an attractive price so that they sell. Yeah. So this is a good example that now the farmers have been recognizing the importance of storage. But also, our project is promoting airtight storage facility as one of the strategy to make sure that the farmers, they are easily storing their surplus. For those who attended the session of airtight storage in Hall B, these were well explained. And anyone who have interest with the airtight storage, please consult us. We'll give you in detail what is needed, because the airtight storage is using local available material for the farmers to do. So this is the most, and the farmers have been very much interested. We have promoted widely, and so far we have reached about 225 airtight storage in our program. So that's, I think, given all these strategies, I think even if we go out, these souls, they are within their farmer, in their own house. They will continue to use even if the project is phasing out. So I think this is a sustainable way also for mobilizing our farmers.
That I'm forced to bring this session to a close, but I have to say that I had a chance to participate in an evaluation of this program in the DCT Dodoma at least maybe 5 years ago, and to see the progress that this diocese has made and the impact of this program, I think you need a big round of applause for a very good presentation and a huge effort.